Just to confirm, I believe we have quorum and we are ready to go live. Thank you, Chair. I believe we are now live.
Thank you. Thank you to our legislative assistant. We'll call the meeting to order at 10:05. I'd now like to offer our land acknowledgement that Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. We'll quickly move to the approval of the minutes of April 16, 2026. Thank you, Councillor Daigle-Gammon, and I didn't see a seconder. Okay, Councillor Purdy, thank you. Are there any errors or omissions in the minutes? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Purdy.
I think my name is spelled incorrectly on the first item in the minutes. It's Prudy instead of Purdy. So just
pardon, we can address that by way of administrative correction. No. Thank you for raising it.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you, Councillor Purdy. Are we ready to call for the question? Thank you, Councillor Kent. All those in favor, raise their hand or signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. The motion has passed. We'll move on to the approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. And I know that Maggie McDonald, our Executive Director of Parks and Recreation, has something to suggest.
Thank you, Chair. Given the heaviness of the agenda, committee was looking at whether we could move anything we could from an administrative perspective. The Transom Park plan could be deferred if needed.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Cuddle.
I'd move to defer the Transom Park.
Okay. Thank you. Moved by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Purdy. Is there discussion? No, Councillor Kent has called for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary minded, nay. The motion has passed. Thank you. Do we also need then to approve the order of business, the revised order of business, or?
I think we can take that as the motion to approve unless there is anything else that requires change for the order of business today. I can confirm from the clerk's office that there are no additions or deletions received.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Simon. We do not have any business arising out of the minutes. I'll now ask for a declaration of conflict of interest from any of the council members. Seeing none, we'll move on. We do not have any motions of reconsideration. We do have one motion of rescission, and I'll ask Councillor Saint-Amant to make the motion of rescission.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The original motion was that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee, the motion is for CPED Committee to rescind the additional motion for item 12.1.1 from the January 16th, 2020 CPED meeting, which requested a staff report as follows. That the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee 1 request a staff report regarding options and opportunities for a long-term program for complete streets and streetscaping for the suburban commercial main streets in the urban service area outside the regional center, which updates the rationale and priorities for projects and establishes stable long-term funding. And 2, that the staff review the letters received and consult with from the suburban business improvement districts in development of the program. So just to give the team here context, this was a recommendation brought from staff. The rationale here is that conditions have changed quite a bit since this particular motion was brought forward in 2020. There are a variety of different reasons that were outlined in the discussion that staff had with myself and Councillor White, who now represents the district of the councillor that brought this forward originally. The first of which is that the regional center streetscaping policy doesn't preclude streetscaping outside the center anyway. And so there is a measure of support for streetscaping outside the urban center that is already part of the regional plan. But there's also changing conditions. I mean, as we've seen in the last couple of years, and in particular our most recent budget cycle, our budgets have changed, conditions have changed, our belts are tightening. And so we're realizing that these types of things could wind up imposing some costs on us. We may not be able to operationalize any such plans. And so in keeping with the notion that we should minimize staff resources on plans that may not come to fruition or may not result in positive change for us ultimately, I think it's worthwhile to look at streamlining our process and trimming out any staff reports that will otherwise occupy resources. Many of the suburban streetscaping plans are initiated in part with leadership from the local bids. And so that is also something that's consistent with the way that we operate now. And so there's nothing in our planning that precludes bids from championing programs like this to bring streetscaping to our suburban areas. And we also have to remember that our suburban plan is in flight now. And so it could wind up very much informing what kind of relationship we have as a municipality with the bids, with the communities that are led by the planning that will wind up being part of the suburban plan. So it's for that reason that I ask for the majority of council here to, or the 2/3 majority of council, to rescind this particular original motion. I think we're going to be able to accomplish this same work through other means that are already in flight. And so I'd prefer not to occupy resources on this unnecessarily. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saint-Amand. And it was Councillor Kent that seconded that. I just wanted to have that for the record. Deputy Mayor Cuttle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm interested in the fact mostly that this was brought forward as a staff recommendation. A lot of effort was put into looking at our suburban main streets and making them complete communities, and there wasn't the attention or the resources to do that. Generally, motions like this might get folded into another motion, such as the suburban plan or the Main Street plan. I don't think budget restraint is the reason to be doing this. We know we need investment in our suburban main streets, and the bids were very, are the vehicles with which to do that. I would be looking for staff for some further explanation. Are we removing the concept of complete streets from our suburban main streets? Is that the intent here, or is the intent that this is in the Main Street, in the suburban plan, in the Main Street workshops and work that's being done? Because I would not want to remove the notion that we aren't going to do complete streets in suburban areas. I don't know if anyone is. I would not be able to support this motion right now on the information as presented. I don't think policy-wise, it's the right direction, and unless I know that where is this being covered? It's not a leave it to chance kind of situation. I think it's something that we need to continue to advocate for. Is there any staff able to answer this from planning? Then if there isn't any staff, I would request perhaps a supplemental report on this, not to, and while it came from the counselor representing District 7, the previous counselor representing District 7, if I remember the origins of this, it was because there was a Main Street streetscaping program for the bids within the regional center, and there wasn't a program that existed outside. And while there might be grants and mechanisms for bids to apply, it wasn't an HRM policy. I do know we are doing suburban Main Street workshops right now. I thought that might have been in relation to this motion. So I don't want to lose this. I think it's really important, and I can't support the motion right now as it stands without that additional information to understand where else this is being captured. So with that, I would request a supplemental report from staff on complete street policy as it relates to suburban main streets before approving this motion of rescission.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cuddle. And Councillor White is up next, and she was the origin of this motion of rescission. But would our executive director like to say something first? I know you pushed your button and then turned it off. So
I seem to override the councillor. My apologies. No, I just wanted to say we don't have staff here to speak to the to this rescission motion today, but as an option, could be perhaps the consideration of the rescission could be deferred, and we could have staff present. But yeah, I'll leave that to the committee.
Am I out? So rather than a supplemental report, a motion of deferral?
That would be my suggestion. Just it may avoid another, even a supplemental staff report if staff can answer your questions satisfactorily. If not, then it's up to the committee whether to support the rescission or request a supplemental or take some other action.
Okay, I see there's some other microphones, so maybe we'll hear from some other members of the committee and guests, and then I'll look to put a motion to defer after the conversation. Thank you.
thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for the question. Just to clarify, this was about streetscaping, not complete streets. And it was brought forward by staff, basically, that we have other mechanisms and through the suburban plan to deal with this, just to, as kind of an administrative thing, to avoid a staff report with those recommendations, to basically a negative recommendation to not do something separate, to more tie it into what you're talking about with suburban planning. Thanks. But happy to defer to have them here as well.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yeah, I guess just to echo Councillor White's comments there, I think the premise here is we do have other mechanisms now. We are doing the suburban Main Street visioning workshops, which I participated for my district. It was amazing. It was good. We have the suburban plan. And I know staff are preparing information about complete streets to come to Transportation Standing Committee this summer, I think in August. So I think it's redundant. So that's why this is being brought forward to be rescinded. But I'm happy to defer till next month if that's what everyone feels more comfortable with. But I've got no problem rescinding this one. It's redundant.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy. Councillor Kent.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm hearing sort of a little bit of everything to me, a deferral is the right thing. Have staff here. Let us ask those questions. Every time I see a report, it does say that in this that it's about complete streets and streetscaping. We've got a lot going on in this area, and it's all good stuff. I think Councillor Cinnamond's approach to being sure that it's another staff report that we need is also appropriate. So let's see if we can avoid another report and consider this when we have staff involved. The other piece of this that I absolutely am strong about is that business improvement districts are not in all of the communities, and so we really truly need another mechanism, and we want to make sure we get this right. So let's look forward to, happy to second your deferral. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Morse.
Thank you. I'm not a voting member and not on the committee, but I just wanted to echo Councillor Kent's comment there. I have a number of main streets in my suburban district, and there aren't any bids. So I'm a little concerned about, maybe we're getting rid of some standards that we need for those areas that don't have bids to advocate for them. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I think we have quite different circumstances in some of the suburban areas for our main streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. I'm not seeing any other name. Oh, Deputy Mayor Cuddle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with that, I'll move to defer the motion of rescission until a future CPED meeting.
Okay. Moved by Deputy Mayor Cuddle, seconded by Councillor Kent. What are the wishes of the committee? The question has been called for. All those in favor, raise your hand or signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. The motion has passed. So this item is deferred until a future meeting. Thank you all. And thank you, Councillor Saint-Amand. Okay. Moving along to consideration of deferred business. At our last meeting, we deferred Seniors Recreation Services Plan. I'll now invite Olivia Davis, a community developer, to come forward to provide a presentation. And I was remiss not to introduce Lee Moore, who is the manager of youth, senior, and outdoor programs.
Thanks, Maggie. Just kidding.
Through the chair to the committee, good morning. Thank you. My name is Olivia. I am a community developer within Recreation, and I focus on youth and seniors programming services. In my role, I've had the privilege of being involved in the development of the first Seniors Recreation Services Plan, and today I will highlight the work that went into the creation of this plan to ensure that it reflects the needs of seniors in our communities, as well as outline the key strategies that will guide its implementation. So first off, I would like to emphasize that this plan was developed by seniors for seniors. At every stage of the process, community members volunteered their time to ensure that seniors' voices were heard, valued, and prioritized. A key contributor to this work was our Seniors Recreation Advisory Group, pictured here. This dedicated group of community members met monthly, sometimes more, sometimes less, to share insights, advocate for the needs of seniors, and provide meaningful direction for this plan. They played a critical role in shaping our survey questions, supporting community engagement efforts, and then guiding the development of the final plan. It was inspiring to work with the group, and I can't overstate our appreciation for their knowledge, commitment, and passion for this project. So like I said, community input was a central priority in the development of this plan. Throughout 2024 and 2025, feedback was gathered through a wide range of methods to ensure that diverse perspectives were represented. In total, 15 senior serving organizations were interviewed, 2,036 surveys were completed, and 25 engagement sessions were held across every council district. Additionally, we visited several senior servant organizations and engaged with 187 participants that way. Taking the time to share perspectives and experiences is no small contribution, and we are grateful to everyone who took the time to provide theirs. So drawing from these surveys, conversations, and interviews, the Seniors Recreation Advisory Group identified 5 strategic priorities that reflect what Halifax Parks and Recreation can meaningfully achieve over the next 5 years to support safety, well-being, and social connection. And I'm going to go through them briefly right now. So Vision 1 focuses on creating opportunities for seniors to build community and relationships by improving social spaces and developing more events and opportunities throughout the municipality. As an initial step, we plan to pilot a community living room space within one of our recreation centers, giving seniors a space to socialize after they attend a program. Vision 2 is centered on ensuring recreation opportunities are accessible and support long-term participation. So this includes adapting programs to transportation times, accessibility needs, and creating opportunities for seniors to try new activities. Vision 3 focuses on increasing access to recreation by addressing financial barriers. This will be achieved by exploring new ways to promote the Affordable Access Program and the Seniors Discount. Vision 4 emphasizes the importance of consistent and adaptable internal systems and structures. This includes tracking data, strengthening partnerships, and establishing a dedicated staff committee to support the implementation of all the strategic priorities within the plan. And Vision 5 focuses on delivering clear, accessible, and effective communication to seniors so that they can stay informed and engaged with recreation opportunities. This includes maintaining an up-to-date website and offering an e-newsletter that highlights upcoming programs, activities, and registration dates. So this is just a snapshot of what the Seniors Recreation Services Plan aims to achieve, but all objectives and goals are intended to create more opportunities for seniors to build meaningful connections within the municipality and to ensure they continue to have a voice in shaping what those opportunities look like. So thank you to the committee for taking the time to receive this presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions or expand on any of the points brought forward.
Thanks very much for the presentation. Councillor Kent.
Yes, thank you. So I just want to start with a big thank you. Thank you for taking this on, and I think we've got a thorough, I believe, synopsis of really what we're hearing in our communities. Seniors make up a large proportion of the populations in our district. I'm a senior now, and I just kind of have to remind myself of that, but I still have a lot of vitality, as do so many others. And sometimes particularly when you perhaps leave work or something of significance that you did in your life, to have a gap of nowhere really to put your energies to can be very debilitating to our folks in their final, or in their last journey of exciting and productive lives, right? So one of the things that struck me is the approach to the development of programs, the development of their newsletters, the improvement of coordinations. I mean, there's so many things here that we can look at, welcoming social spaces, all of those layers. How do you see the municipality delivering on this in a way, the way I would look at it, I guess, is a planning of some form of a hub. There's a lot of really great activities happening in our communities that have our seniors participating, but maybe they're disjointed in a way that they're not aware of each other's neighborhoods that are also doing other things. And they may be the same and they may be different. Does this kind of strategy of delivery, is it solely going to be about municipal delivery, or is it about a combination of municipal delivery with partners already established in the community? And I also want to note that 2,000 participants in survey engagement and activities is a huge win, because I think that certainly we've heard it before along the campaign trail and over my career that, well, some seniors don't have access to this or that. Well, I think that's changing because the senior population, again, as part of it, I can handle all of that. And so I think we're proving that wrong, and I think it's time to change that narrative, because that's still being said occasionally, but not as much. So I think I just want to have a shout out to the folks that did participate. I think it's really awesome. And I look forward to hearing a little bit about what my question is, and then working with you. I think that this kind of engagement and strategy is a really great fit with the work that us as counselors do in our communities. I really do, in our networks of getting the information out. I've said it before on a lot of different things, but in particular this. Thank you.
Through the chair to the counselor, thank you so much for everything you said. In relation to partnerships, there is definitely an emphasis on what we can do as our own offerings versus how we can support other organizations and how they offer their programs, whether that's including it in the newsletter, putting information on the website, creating a partnership where they come in and work with us to offer a program in our rec centers or in our parks or something. So it's definitely something to explore. And when we did a lot of the interviews with organizations, it was they were keen for support from us to deliver that. There is a section in the plan where it's a map of the municipality and all the seniors organizations are listed there. And the plan is on the website to also offer a spot where people can reach out to us if they're missing from that list and add them to the list. So it's a resource on the website for seniors to see where they live and what's around them, is something to help with that. And there's an email that I have access to. It's seniors@halifax.ca. And often I get emails or phone calls from folks just asking for navigation help, whether it's with our programs or with external programs. So it's definitely something to prioritize as we move forward with the plan.
Thank you, Councillor Kent and Olivia. Councillor Hartling.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for this presentation. I know that it's long awaited. I feel like when it comes to seniors and recreation, I can talk forever. But I have 3 questions just looking through the report now. I note that one of the things that you call it is caregiver participation. So my understanding of that is that you were looking to add some options for caregivers while seniors are engaging in recreational activities. I know that there is a big cohort, at least in St. Margaret's Bay and Prospect, that are looking for recreation opportunities where they themselves are the primary caregiver of somebody else who requires care. So I'm wondering whether you received any of that kind of feedback and how you, and whether you've considered that in your planning. So say, for example, your partner has Alzheimer's, for example. They are desperate for recreation opportunities, and currently they don't have the supports that they need. So I'm wondering if you could speak to that in any way, and whether that's been considered at all in this plan. My second question is regarding access. I know very often you speak to the idea of equitable access. Have you considered transportation or transit options when you use those terms? Because I don't actually see it in terms of the reporting. And my last one, and again, I'm very focused on the rural lens here, obviously. I note that you call out the potential for facilities that could be used for additional recreation purposes, i.e. schools. We have had, big challenges getting access to schools, evenings, and then particularly summers was called out. I'm just wondering, has that idea been vetted, or is that just an idea that was considered by the volunteer group? So I'll start there. Thank you very much.
Through the chair to the counselor. Thank you so much. So for caregivers, right now we have an inclusion program through recreation that is often only thought to be applied to children and youth, but is an option outside of that as well when available. So right now, if someone were to show up with a caregiver, we wouldn't necessarily turn them away, but there's no formal best practice for what to do with the caregiver attending. So the plan would be to formalize that process so that people know that that's an option. And then a definition of what a caregiver isn't up to us to decide. If it's another senior, if it's a partner, if it's a daughter, a parent, whatever that looks like, we don't define what the caregiver is. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. So is the intent that you offer supports as for somebody who requires a caregiver?
So right now, no. It would be if someone was interested in bringing their own caregiver and thought that they would have to pay for 2 people to participate, or that it's not allowed, is making it clear that that is okay. We do have inclusion programs for children and youth, and there might be opportunities where staff are available to extend that to adults or seniors. We haven't done that yet, but it could be something down the line. It's normally due to staff availability or having staff that are able to do that work. But right now it would be formalizing a best practice that if you require assistance and are able to bring your own assistance with you, that is allowed. And making sure that that's communicated and is consistent across all programs. Am I missing something?
Through the chair to the counselor, Lee Moore, manager of youth, seniors, and outdoor programs. My title just changed, so I'm getting used to it. Just to comment on that, the key message that came through from the seniors team, the advisory group that we had, was really allowing caregivers, those who have those caregivers, to come and really not pay a fee for attending, because most of their focus is going to be on the person who needs that care while they're in that program. That's kind of where the communication, and that's kind of what we wrote into this.
Right,
it's
that's
kind of
the way I
where
read
their focus. So it's kind of the start, I guess. It it's kind of, let's start there and see where we go as it kind of continues. And as Olivia said, like, the best practice for us is having that consistency throughout the whole thing, just to kind of give us like the backbone to say to our staff, like, this is allowed. Now let's start communicating it throughout each rec center in the city. So, yeah. The other thing, I guess, if you're okay with me, I would say from the access perspective, for transit, we did write a lot. Obviously, like, from rec perspective, we can't influence transit, but we can influence when our program times are offered. So a lot of the seniors talked about ensuring that our programs are running, and this is more an urban-centric piece for this one, of course, ensuring our programs are running during free bus times on Tuesdays was mentioned quite a lot, or just ensuring that, if a program is starting at 3 p.m. but the bus in the local area comes at 2:50, maybe we need to back it, move things around a little just to give them time to take a bus there. Of course, the rural area looks completely different in that kind of regard. But with it, I think it's a lot of the theme throughout all of this plan is communication and trying to just make seniors aware that there's options. In the rural areas, there might be a local service. You're in St. Margaret's Bay. We had a large engagement in that area.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
Don't
with
doubt
the Bay community. So, they're lucky, they do a lot of hard work to get transportation is a, I'm not going to say it's solved, but they have options for some things that they do with their group. So, and they should be very proud of the work they go into that stuff. But they're the ones that kind of brought a little bit up this as well. So just aligning some times when things are available. And for the rural perspective for the schools, I apologize. I actually don't remember your full question with that.
I'm, again, as somebody else who has begged and pleaded to get access to school gyms over the summer in particular, but just generally overall, I know that our access is quite limited, or that has been my experience. And I'm just wondering whether that idea has been vetted or whether that idea was, in the list of ideas. And just help me understand how you imagine, because quite frankly, I know all kinds of people who would be interested in school gyms. So if I could just understand that a little bit better.
Sorry, thanks. Through the chair to the council. Yes. So thank you for reminding me. One of the first comments when we started this project was when the seniors team, I think it was the seniors team, when they first got together, they were like, we don't have a lot of access to rec centers in the summer. We'd like to have more, but we don't want to kick out the kids, because obviously that's very important. So it was a very interesting, balanced feedback and comment on that piece. So from vetting the schools, what our hope is as we roll this out over the next few years here, our rec coordinators will be able to look at what's available in their communities and then kind of take it from there to say, okay, well, we need a little bit more access to schools at this point or that point. But there's nothing written in stone right now. It's more up to the committee as we start getting things rolled out to basically find the gaps, figure out what's needed in the communities, and kind of go from there. We do have, I call it like the appendix of the report has a bit more graphs and things like that. So there is the background research that they do have, all our staff will be rolling that out to them shortly. So they'll be able to know, okay, well, you know, these programs here are popular. This is more from my area. I might be able to offer something in your community. I don't have space. What's the next step? So we'll be able to kind of monitor and figure that out as we go. So it hasn't been vetted fully. It's more, we do have a process in place as Recreation to request access to the schools. So our hope is, as we need it, we'll be able to kind of slowly get that over the next few years.
Well, I hope so.
Councillor Hartling, you can come back, okay? We're way over. I'll let the question get answered there, okay? Let's move on to Councillor Dago-Gammon, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, if you'd like, I can put the motion on the floor to continue.
We can wait till we do the
you're
round
gonna
of
wait?
questions.
Okay. Thanks for the presentation. I'm a little curious about something. I mean, I think it's great that we're going to have a sort of a seniors recreation services plan. What I'm like, when you think about the Vision 4 and you talk about the committee and the staff committee to help guide future programming, and it says Objective 1, update the current youth committee to conclude youth and seniors. So the needs of youth are very different from the needs of seniors. So is this, is this lumped together due to staff capacity? Is it a staff-driven reason why it's combined? Like, I'm curious about why you're bundled up that way. So that's one question. The second is, who is on this committee? Internal staff, who are they? And then it talks about, an annual report will come to CPED. So during the course of the first year with this, what kind of an evaluation component is being done? Are we evaluating ourselves? Is there an independent review to say that we've got this services plan, it's been operating for a year? How do we know that it's been successful or not successful? And is it meeting the needs of our seniors?
I'll do the first.
Thanks.
through the chair to the councillor. Good question. So internally, Recreation as a business unit has a number of internal committees. And essentially, it was mostly me, thought it'd be very convenient to have one committee that kind of handles the youth and senior piece. Throughout the year, if you look at the workload between the committee, there's some capacity to kind of help disseminate information, get things going and things like that. So this internal committee wouldn't necessarily be running everything. They're just the liaison between all the other staff. So there's a representative from each of the recreation areas within the city. So with that, we just thought, well, this is the perfect lineup. My title's changed. Olivia's on the youth committee as well. By kind of looking at changing this up, it just will help us kind of go, okay, from September to whatever date, our focus is a little bit more on the senior piece and ensuring that the plan's implemented. Summer, it's very youth heavy. So, we might shift focus there, but ultimately there's capacity within our meetings that we have to add on extra things to talk about, discuss, and ensure things are kind of rolled out appropriately. So I'm pretty confident that there's the capacity there to kind of make it happen. Do you want to do that?
Through the chair to the council, also to extend on that, the expertise of everyone on the committee doesn't just pertain to youth. We all participate in recreation all around, and the focus of those conversations is youth, but the expertise for seniors would be relevant as well, if that makes sense. Yeah. And then the second question, the reporting. I think when we've talked about reporting, it would be similar to the rural recreation strategy and how it reports on each individual goal. So once approved, the plan, each goal would be prioritized in a timeline, and so year one, we might focus on goal 1, 2, and 3, and then report on what we've done for goal 1, 2, and 3. And then year 2 might be focusing on other goals and expanding on the first goal. So measuring success might be based on consultations with community and feedback from staff and how much we were able to complete. But we don't know beyond that until we do it, I think.
Just as a quick follow-up, 51 seconds. when will we see what this implementation plan looks like and what this phase 1, 2, or 3, when will we see that?
Through the chair to the counselor, that's a great question. So what my plan was for this was to treat it very similar to the youth engagement report. So we do an annual report for that, which also covers the youth services plan. So it's kind of a very similar model. My hope is this first year of this really is us looking at how are we going to implement this plan. That's kind of why the seniors advisory group that we had kind of said, like, you know, a 3-year plan, a 4-year plan, like what are we doing? And there's a lot of conversation that went into, okay, well, the first year is really just figuring out what's our approach to start implementing. And there's a lot of background stuff. So I would say, you know, and my executive director is up there, of course, and can tell me if I'm off base, but I would say, you know, within probably by, you know, 6-7 months from now, we could come back with something that would kind of say, here's the implementation process.
Okay.
Keeping in mind that, you know, our summers are busy. So from the rec perspective, Olivia and I get freed up a little bit more. So we're able to kind of do the background stuff and then bring it to this internal rec committee to try to just flesh out the more finer details. So ideally, you know, December, January is probably when we could come back with saying, like, here's the first plan, here's how it's kind of going to be rolled out, with obviously options for this committee to make suggestions and things like that. So,
Thank you. I'm out of time, but I guess bundling youth and seniors, you just went to the crux of what I think might be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Daigle Gammon, and you can come back. Let's move to Deputy Mayor Cuttle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so I had some seniors in my district that had been calling for this for many years, and so it's great. I see there a couple of them are participating on the committee here and on the advisory committee, and you know, it's really wonderful to see a focus on seniors programming. I think it is a step in the right direction. A couple of things that came to mind. One, I noticed you had, I think, one man on the committee, and you know, it was, and the rest were women. I'm just really curious because I think, like, how we attract men or different, you know, members of diverse cultures or from the LGBTQ community is going to be maybe specific or different. So I'm wondering how in this, you know, you're going to kind of ensure that there's programming that appeals to kind of the diversity of seniors that exist, not just by age category, but by, you know, community or how people identify. I think, you know, that's just a consideration, and maybe you can speak to that a little bit. And I was also wondering about partnerships. How do you envision using partnerships where expertise exists? So, I mean, seniors, you know, recreation, I mean, there's people who specialize in seniors yoga. There's a wonderful organization I saw from the Community Health Board Awards that did dance for people with Parkinson's, for example. And, you know, like, rather than try to duplicate the expertise within HRM, how do you envision working with partners specifically around issues that are specific to seniors, and kind of utilize that expertise that already exists? And my third question is about back to kind of venues. So we have, like, lots of community centers that are run by local community groups. I'm thinking in my district about the Herring Cove Community Center that's newly open that can do recreation. Ketch Harbor one, they do, you know, yoga. But how are we going to work with the partners in the rural areas specifically to deliver programming and look at opportunities, not necessarily about bringing people into municipal facilities, but bringing municipal programs out into you know, the community centers? Like, the libraries have been getting better at that through their library kiosks or offering, you know, youth programming. So do you imagine a similar model of kind of outreach at going to where people are as a piece? And just back just back to the piece around the cultural piece, like the cultural kind of appropriate programming. I was also at Northwood recently for a volunteer event. That was a program. It was called like something like Creative Communities or something like that, and it was about getting volunteers working with. Volunteers in the cultural community. It was being run out of the mosque, getting volunteers to go and provide assistance to seniors with, in a culturally appropriate way. And, so there's all these amazing programs out there. So I'm really interested about like how that, how do we connect into that as well?
Through the chair to the counselor, thank you for your questions. So you're right. Our committee at the end, there was a lack of male participants because it was a volunteer group. It ebbed and flowed who participated over the 2-year process of creating the plan. So there were some men on the committee that eventually showed up a little less, and it was something that the group spoke about consistently on that. It was a room of women and how we were making sure that male perspectives were in there. So there is a specific goal in the plan about developing or designing programs for men. And what that might look like, we don't know yet. It would be through consultation and communication with our recreation coordinators for how to do that, or partnering with some seniors organizations that might be more male dominated and stuff. But you're right. There is that missing piece on the group, but it wasn't ignored. It was definitely something brought forward, and we'll definitely work with that for other versions of diversity too, not just based on gender. There is a gap there that a lot of the goals have community engagement built in to make sure that we're still constantly getting input from folks and not just going off of what was said here all the time. For partnerships, it will follow a similar model to how we currently do partnerships, just with an emphasis on seniors programming or communicating with seniors. So right now, there's like the way that community recreation coordinators would build those partnerships will be similar, just emphasizing seniors programming and maybe shifting the script a little bit where necessary to make sure that we are being adaptable and accessible for everyone. And then you're right, culturally relevant program was something that came up a lot, whether it's there's a goal about intergenerational programming. And that doesn't necessarily mean a random group of kids and a random group of seniors coming together. It could be designing programs for a whole family, whatever a family looks like, which sometimes in different cultures is more relevant than just having a program with just kids and the parents drop them off and pick them up. Sometimes it's different. So it's definitely something to incorporate, and maybe connecting with different, not like seniors groups, but it doesn't have to be a seniors group to be relevant for the seniors plan. It could be a faith group, and other organizations that happens to have seniors involved, but including seniors through this plan is something we'll look at as well. And I think I got everything, but you can add stuff.
Just the rule, yeah.
Just from the, through the chair to the counselor, just to comment on the rural area piece. The approach we're going to take is starting with presentations to those boards, those community centers that are out there, and trying to start with the top-down piece, so not just to the staff, but to the board itself, so that everybody in that center is aware of like the plan and kind of what was said from that community area. We did, as Olivia said, a lot of engagement sessions in each area, and we have those notes and things like that, so we're able to come confidently and go, hey, in your area, this was kind of commented on. Is there something we can assist with a little bit, from a planning perspective or something like that? But ultimately, if it's up to them if they want to choose to run something. But we're hoping we can give them really great data and feedback, and also create a relationship with Olivia here, so that there's ongoing communication. It's not just that, hey, we're in here, we did this, goodbye. It's a little bit more long-term thought out, so that 5 years from now, 4 years from now, when we start the next process, we're not starting from scratch of trying to understand who the organizations are and all that kind of thing, especially in the rural areas. So,
yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cuddle. Vice Chair Saint-Amand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. thank you for the fabulous work on this. It's obviously very, very much needed, and the update to the strategy in reaching our seniors is awfully important. I hear from seniors a lot looking for more options for recreation, and so this sounds like it's going to wind up very much delivering. A couple of quick questions. So, noticing in the list of types of activities that seniors are looking for and where the weighting is, some require very little in terms of resources, which is fantastic. It makes it a lot easier to make programs like that mobile and accessible and available in a variety of different geographies. There are some that are a little bit more challenging, though. So I'm curious to know, I mean, you've noted, the staff report notes no financial implications. It's expected that some of these adjustments can be made within the existing budget. But I'm anticipating in the longer term, as programs roll out, popularity, ebbs and flows, you'll wind up having some resource allocation that will wind up having to have some budgetary impact, because not every geography has the availability of pickleball or computers in a recreation center to be able to offer computer skills courses, that sort of thing. So I'm curious to know, I guess it may not be fair to ask the question since it will vary based on what program you're offering, but just how much mobility do we have in program offering across geographies to maximize accessibility based on what the demand is in a particular area of HRM? So that's question number one. Number two, I'm just curious whether or not the Seniors Advisory Group could potentially be an ongoing concern, because you're going to have some change in the audience, some change in programming over time, and I would envision there being some value in having the same type of advice available on an ongoing basis, recognizing that it's a volunteer group, and so you'll have people that'll wind up not having the time to do it anymore, and so you'll wind up having to backfill, so it may be a little bit complicated, but I would anticipate them being a valuable resource on an ongoing basis. And then thirdly, just a comment, consider all of us here on council as your cheerleaders and amplifiers of your message. I note that in a variety of these strategic sections, you're talking about the various different ways that you're going to communicate with the senior audience. And as Councillor Kent noted, there are differences among senior groups as to what their literacy is of one communication vehicle versus another. And while it is steering largely towards electronic communication, more than 10% of your responses came in on physical paper. So we know that there's an audience out there that will not be able to reach things electronically as well. And so my hope is that you'll continue to treat council members as a resource to help amplify your messaging, because we're out there in the community, we're receiving questions from our residents on a regular basis, and no matter how good your mailing list happens to be, no matter how good ours is, I'm sure they overlap in ways that we might not predict. And so the hope is that we'll be able to help you reach the audience that you're looking to reach.
Through the chair to the councillor, and with that, you're totally right. The mix of communication is a must. I would say the councillor's newsletter was certain members, and I'm sure of our Seniors Recreation Advisory Group were very clear that had to be in the councillor's newsletter. Oh my goodness, it wasn't in the councillor's newsletter. As we kind of rolled out information and things like that, right? So through that whole process, that was one of the key mechanisms for sure, and it's very important. I think that we continue with that avenue, but also to your point, the mixed media, it has to be, paper versus, electronic. It has to have the whole mix. It can't just be one or the other. As Councillor Kent did mention, though, it was shocking to see how much was done online. And actually, even in the rural areas, it was noted most people get their information through email or like a Google Calendar. So it was a bit of a wake-up call for myself, who I think Councillor Kent, as you mentioned, like it's kind of like you kind of have that yeah, okay, there's lack of internet and stuff like that. It's not fully the case, but you still need that mixed medium as we go forward. It'll be very interesting, just from my nerd self of liking data, like 5 years from now, what does that look like? Is it still the same kind of thing as things shift, right? So to go to your first question around the financial, the demand versus the areas, we're confident in how we program and the new programs we put in place that we can easily adapt to the need as we go forward. And it'll be up to our seniors team and the recreation managers and everybody to kind of constantly keep this as an item that's at the forefront of our minds as we meet each month, so that, as budget times come, it's easy to go, okay, this is my envelope for next year. I've heard they want this program is very popular. We might be able to expand that. It's kind of looking at the data and also taking the feedback. And Recreation will be doing a little bit of work around the evaluation and getting feedback post programs as well. One of the items we're going to pilot first here is like a community living room, which really is looking at just a space for seniors to hang out afterwards in a rec center. But can't just create the space and they won't come. We need to kind of do the background work of being like, these programs are happening. They could easily come afterwards and sending out communication on it. So there's some things that just have very little cost, and some, like you mentioned, could look at more, of a future planning process. But we're pretty confident here that we can get everything as we kind of go forward. And the Seniors Recreation Advisory Group, yes, Olivia will probably 100%, I would say, and I want to say probably, will having a kind of a advisory piece as we go forward. Similar to the youth piece like that, we have a youth team that usually advises the community developers work for things. So it'll be very similar because it's just, it's needed to have that real-time feedback as we kind of plan and go forward. So as much as we said thank you and semi-goodbye to the group we had, as we start to roll out and start to think about the implementation, we'll be looking at kind of that resource for sure. So, which I will say, one unique thing that Olivia's brought that I give her kudos for, she's working on the youth services plan right now. And during the downtime in the plan, she's kind of allowed other business units to come in and talk to the seniors team, or the youth team, sorry. So I see it very similar that, we'll be creating this team, but other business units will be able to come and have access to this group as we kind of move forward if we don't have something, because consistency of meeting is important. So if there's lack of an agenda item one month, at least we know we could say to other groups, hey, come chat with them, kind of see. I know in the beginning of this plan, the elections group through Ian came in and did a presentation to our Seniors Recreation Advisory Group because we had them. So, they're able to give feedback on other things as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Purdy.
Thank you. So thanks for this. Seniors are really important, and I think it's good to try to prioritize them in as many ways as we can. On attracting men, coffee and donuts work, because I know our Tim Hortons is always packed with our men with the coffee and donuts. So just saying, that's a good one. And for venues, I mean, we have so many churches in all of our districts that are unused during the week in many aspects, and that's like in a wonderful community space. Like they're usually warm, friendly spaces, and also fire halls. Yeah, lots of different opportunities to offer coffee and donuts, and also partnerships. I think it's a really, really good area to focus on with our provincial folks, with our, experts in different areas, even legal experts, to volunteer some of their time to come and speak to community about, writing wills or, like specific things that are pertinent. Okay, so I guess that's all I wanted to say, but like, socialization for seniors is really, really important. I think more important than we know. So this is really a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy. Let's go to Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Chair. I really like the idea of the drop-in and the living room idea, community living room. Just trying to think through it, to operationalize it, for example, in my district where I'm familiar with some of the gaps. We don't have a rec center, a municipal rec center in the Fairview Clayton Park area, other than a rink. So if we were going to create a drop-in center for seniors at a rink, it would take a bit of renovating, a bit of furniture, a bit of, equipment of some kind or another to make it more pleasant and useful for people. So long back lead into when are we going to see, some of these gaps identified, and will we see something in the next budget so that we can get moving on this, or are we looking at a year and a half away, or how do you see us making progress on the practical aspects of it? Thank you.
Through the chair to the councillors. So our hope is to pilot this upcoming year, and for that specific idea, for sure, in existing centers that we have, just to kind of work the bugs out before we roll it out. Fairview Clayton Park is a unique area for sure, and I don't know if I can do a rink, but we might be able to see what else is in the neighborhood that we could offer some of that stuff in. So I would say let us take that away and kind of give some thought to that for sure, because you are right, there are some gap areas for sure. Even in the rural areas, it's going to have to be looked at a little differently. So but what we thought is just by kind of looking at it as a little bit of a pilot at first here to see, like, is this concept even worth it? Does it make sense to keep them social, the seniors, after a certain program? Because that's kind of what we've heard. Does it work? Do people actually want to stay as much as the data says it? So do you have something to say? Okay, sorry. I thought you held on paper. Yeah, so we'll take that back for sure, and we'll have a plan to figure this out for sure.
Okay, thank you. I guess having seen over the last couple of years the work that's gone on to try to identify a location in Fairview Clayton Park for a youth center, it's one of the few parts of urban HRM that doesn't have a youth center, and we've tried various places and not been able to come up with a location. It didn't work at the library, it didn't work at CGC, for various reasons. So I just know that's been a real struggle on the youth center end of it. So I'm hopeful that maybe it's a little easier on the seniors end for different reasons. So anyway, thank you for that.
Thanks, Councillor Morse. We'll go to Councillor Kent, who's been waiting patiently for a long time.
Thank you. No problem. I've enjoyed my colleagues' questions. I have a couple of things that I want to mention here, and it's in relation to sort of how you move forward in the next phases based on some of the things you talked about. But the big thing is that the facilities, we have a lot of facility deserts within the municipality. While it's not a desert, it's a very limited space, but Horizon, for instance, is full with, as was mentioned, with our kids programming, and even then that seems small to the size of the municipality, of the district that is, and the community of Eastern Passage, which is expected to double to almost 20,000 over the coming years. So facility deserts and this strategy really matter right now, and I'm glad we have our executive director here to hear this. When we have considered new facilities or upgrades to facilities, we've used the facility master plan, and none of this would have been involved in any of that consideration. We're talking a significant number of people in the population of HRM that fit within this category of a gap. And I really, really hope that there is a way now to influence the potential for future facility consideration to fill in some of these deserts. In the meantime, for instance, District 3 has 3 locations. We have the Seenagers, we have the Seniors by the Sea, and the Dartmouth Senior Center, who have consistently have venues, maybe you'd want to consider some form of a portable or a mobile or a roving program that doesn't have to be specific to the municipality, but could be, we can take program to these organizations and be still vital service delivery. The piece that you spoke about around the caregivers space that might be involved in our programming, really, really important. I know that caregivers for whether they're seniors or whatever layer of care they're giving, opportunities to go to programming is really good for both the person and the caregiver. So I really like that. What I would encourage you to do, if you haven't already, and maybe you have, but is to reach out to Caregivers Nova Scotia. They have been delivering program. They have been involved in how to serve the population that we're talking about. They may be able to give you some insight into some of the things that you have to consider when we're talking about people with different stages of life that require care and support. You'd be surprised about the complexities that are involved in having them there, and knowing what they are first and then planning on how to deliver is really helpful, and they're experts at it. And so I really encourage you to find time to work with them. The other question I have is 211. 211 folks that are on the phones are there to receive calls. Seniors call. We encourage them to call. We encourage anyone to call. And if there was an opportunity to give those folks that are on the end of those calls an understanding of what we're trying to do here, they'll be ready when someone calls to say, well, we know that the municipality is working on that. And we've just heard that they're delivering this program out of this space. Just keep them up to date and educate them on those things that will be coming forward. I personally think that a presentation of this type of strategy is a really great way to start. Often that it's just a receipt of the information and go from there. Presenting it would be an opportunity for them to also ask questions so they better understand what might be coming forward in the future and be able to ask questions. They're a great partner to have, because that's also a place that we seniors can look for information. That's it. Thank you again. And are we ready to put the motion on the floor? Or we have another speaker?
We do have another speaker, but go ahead, Councillor Kent.
Okay, are you okay with that, Councillor Dago-Gammon? I know you wanted to. Okay, so I move that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend the Regional Council approve the Seniors Recreation Services Plan as attached to the staff report dated April 10th, 2026 as attachment 1 for implementation. And that, I think that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Kent, and seconded by Councillor Dago-Gammon. And we do have another speaker, and we did kind of segue from questions of clarity into debate and discussion. So go ahead, Councillor Hartling.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And apologies, but I feel like I need to talk about pickleball more. And so without belaboring the thing, I personally have some big concerns about calling out additional facilities in the area that might be appropriate for gym space, only because I know how desperate we are for gym space all over. So I would ask that, or encourage you to also consider other outdoor court spaces that could be converted to pickleball court spaces, so that particularly in the summer when seniors do lose access to gym space because of summer programming and camps, that there is still space, at least some amount of space. I know that I know of a number of courts that are currently being underutilized, and they could definitely be put to good utility. And on the flip side of that, I know that there is a large contingent of seniors who would be very interested in having year-round lawn bowling, and we have not yet accommodated that either. So if that could be part of the dialogue, I think that would be greatly appreciated. I feel like there's like the tension there between, what can we achieve indoors and what can we achieve outdoors, and I think that there's probably an opportunity to think about both with greater clarity to get the maximum value out of the rec opportunities that we have. And I would say as well, and I worry a lot about the recreation opportunities and facilities that we do have on deck. So when it comes to things like pickleball, I don't fully understand how we are tracking which communities are in the most need and things like that. But it would be great if we could get that clarity. And Councillor Daigle-Gammon's like, enough, Councillor Hartling, you need to stop. So I will. Thanks. Thank you.
Were you going to, did you wish to respond? Okay. No.
I can quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Through Madam Chair, I can very quickly speak to that we do have a piece of work coming in a scoping for this year identified for an outdoor recreation facilities plan that looking at sort of recreation facilities population and so on, so that we have a clearer picture of what the need is and what the plan is going forward.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Hartling. I think we are running tight on time. I do have with the permission of the committee, I have a very, very quick comment on this as well, and then hopefully someone will call for the question. My comment is just to talk about the importance of the plan and to agree with the comments of all of my colleagues. Also to mention and to pick up on the theme that was raised by Councillor Morse in terms of more need for space for seniors in the Fairview, Clayton Park, Wedgwood area. Our seniors feel that perhaps they're not as well served because they don't have an HRM community center. And I also wish to comment that I do think the churches, picking up on the comment from Councillor Purdy, many of the churches used to offer some services to seniors. They backed out of some of those things. There used to be recreation in various churches during COVID times, and it may be there may be more opportunity to look at providing more recreational services to seniors in those. So with that, maybe I'm not expecting a response. With that, maybe I'll ask someone to call for the question. Thank you, Councillor Purdy. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary minded, nay. The motion has passed. Thank you. Thank you to our presenters, and thank you to everyone for a robust discussion. Thank you. So moving on, I'll ask our clerk if we have any correspondence received.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm for the Standing Committee that items of correspondence have been received and circulated for items 13.1.1 and 13.1.2.
Okay. And do we have any petitions that have been received by the clerk?
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that the clerk's office has not received any petitions.
Do any councillors have petitions they'd like to bring forward at this time? Seeing none, we'll move to presentations, and I'll invite William Breckenridge, a representative of the Friends of the Halifax Memorial Library, to come forward and provide his presentation. You have 10 minutes. And the clerk will time the presentation and provide a verbal notice when you have 30 seconds left and when your time is up. So, Mr. Breckenridge, whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Committee members for having me here today. And I wanted to just put this out, and I know that you have an item in front in regards to the Halifax Memorial Library. Just a very quick, I myself am a historian, a spokesman, also involved in the financial services, and very involved with, over the past decade, of promoting and trying to find good use for a very important space. Our petition right now is actually over 2,100 signatures and counting, and we haven't formally put that in, but it is available for viewing on change.org. The vision here is to preserve the built heritage which makes Halifax unique through adaptive reuse to honor the history of both the cenotaph memorial status of the physical building and the exterior grounds as a historic site for graves. Our ask is that Council call for an adaptive reuse of the full Halifax Memorial Library site to include the grounds in the manner that ensures respectful stewardship and continued public use and comprehensive public consultation, which to date, through, I should mention, I also did a FOIPOP, which took 4 years to get full disclosure of unredacted material, and that material was 384 pages long. I have sifted through that and found that public engagement and due process was not followed in that. And I think that that's extremely important. Also about the cost of the library's rehabilitation was not correct. When you look at the two parts, and that is just not good in my book. The significance of the library goes into as a grave site, the cenotaph, the architectural significance, just that geographical corner is very important to us all. And also the significance of the agreement between the province and the city as a park. But we have to stop thinking, what is a park and how is it used? The seniors, what they were just saying, I think that all plays into indoors, outdoors as one unit. And here's a prime example of how you could make something like that work. And just to give a timeline, there was a status report and then recommendations, which led to a conclusion of, end of life for the library building. But, I disagree with that, and that's why we're here today. Public presentations, that I did that, and there was over 200 people in attendance. And, with over 2,100 signatures, it's very clear that public want to be engaged, they want to be part of this, and they want to see the building be part of the park and used for good. And we need community space for nonprofits, as your previous items, all these things, it's really, really important. And this location is just so central to that. So I think that that is important. And also expressing a call that how to pay for these things. Well, there's a partnership models. I'm getting emails constantly about, well, we'll gladly donate money from random individuals. My website has all kinds of interesting emails on it. It's something else. In the case of reuse, I think that part of the cost-saving thing here is to look at how you're deploying this $100,000 currently on the table as a park plan. There's tenders that were put out in at least internally to look at through 2020, through 2022. They were never publicly put out, but they're there. I have copies of them. That was part of the FOIPOP. So there's approaches that can be done to do that. Also about not disturbing the ground. Well, the recommendations out of the 2021 report show that distribution of that, no matter what you do, is going to result in some. But when you really look at it, you don't have to underground utilities. And there are ways to deal with sewer issues without having to do severe digging of any sort with lining and other methods. And those are out there. And there's lots of companies, you can just Google it and it shows up. Our technology is fantastic nowadays to deal with these things so you don't have to disturb the ground. And also heritage preservation, not in just the sense of its built form, but also of the landscape of the area, the wall around it, everything. It interplays between the downtown and Spring Garden Road as a connector. And of course, there's always cost, but as we say, there's lots of people who want to donate, who want to do things, an association or an endowment, something separate that the city, like Centennial Pool, has an association that could be done. And why now? Well, the building has been sitting far too long. Demolition by neglect at this point is how many people who I've been talking to, which as you can see by the petition is in the thousands, feel about that, and that we've reached a point where we are concerned about need for public space, the closures of churches and things, and this is just adding on to that compound. Next steps forward is what is being presented as a motion to this committee, to include the library into public engagement is a very positive step forward. And but there also needs to be looking at potential tenders and how these things go. And I, as a historian and someone who studied archaeology, economics, all these things, and architecture as well, I have a very strong feeling that the public, don't discount the public. When the Central Library was being built, that top floor with the cantilever, that was supposed to be all for administrative. But when you went to the public, I remember attending that, so many people. It was in Pier 21, and wow, that got changed into what it is now. You go up there and it's beautiful. And so I think, you need to bring that in. It just seems like everything has been held like, well, maybe this group, maybe that group, but never to the public. This is a public asset, and it needs due process and accountability put to it. I would like to also say in conclusion, lest we forget, because this is a living cenotaph, my family, on a personal note, has been very much involved in World War II and World War I and served with great distinction and honors. And when the library was built, there was a quote here from the chair of the Halifax Memorial Committee and curator of the Provincial Museum, which I would like to read to you. The lack of such a library in Halifax is felt by many to be a disgrace. Nothing could be more symbolic of the sacrifice of those who we wish to honor than a library housing books which Adolf Hitler burnt. A well-designed library would be a lasting memorial, and with the passage of the years would evermore be a flighting hollow to the memories of those who died and the others who enjoyed the freedom of speech and study. And that is what that building represents. And it's a place for community, and it's a place for honor. It was, unfortunately, the site was chosen and was forgotten at this time as a gravesite, and that's always in conflict. But as I pointed out to you, we have the engineering technology to mitigate that, and I would not be up here to disrespect that. I fight very hard for the respect of those who have passed, and I call it the unwanted of it. In that whole area, including the old burying ground, the parking lot of St. Mary's Basilica, and the Memorial Library, and the Methodist Church, which, by the way, had an apartment building built on it with 244 at least graves dug up at a cost of millions. And some of those were Indigenous graves, potentially, which that goes all into the FOIPOP. It's something else to read. That the apartment building is there. So, that's 2016. So we really need to engage the public, and they want to. I did a Jane's Walk recently at the beginning of May. 60 people showed up. It was like a little army marching along. It was something else. I didn't expect that many. And it was so wonderful to see. And they wanted to ask so many questions. I was there still after a half hour with that. So I just wanted to put that out there and show you that the public want to be engaged. They want this building used. You're talking previously about meeting spaces. This is 39,000 square feet. Demolition cost is about $400 a square foot in some cases, from what I've heard from development community. So that's a lot of money to demolish something like this. And as far as condition goes, I have from 2009 engineers reports, today's architectural, and I had an architect actually pull from today's design things about that in my notes here, and the condition in that, and it's totally usable and doable. So thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Breckenridge. We do have a question from Councillor Kent.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for coming in, Mr. Breckenridge. Lots of really good points. I'm curious, though, to understand the Friends of the Halifax Memorial Library. How is that a formalized group? Is it a formalized group, or are these people that send you information and that's kind of what you're calling it? I just kind of want to, I want to.
I'm sorry. So, to Madam Chair and through to the councillor, the group has many components to it. We are not formally on like the joint stocks, but as a society, we are still very much intact, and I still have a working board and that do that.
And how many
so.
members would you say are part of that?
Well, right now, as out of the board itself, I have 6 working members, but there are many other members, including parts of other historical societies like the Heritage Trust of Nova Scotia and that, which are all, we're all in communication about the library
specific.
building.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, William, for being here today. My question was just about, in your interest in your work on this, if you've had any communication, not that it's on you, but I'm just curious, with the Mi'kmaq community on their feelings.
I have not, but I have tried to reach out myself with it. I feel that, there is a sacred space, and that is something that personally myself, I feel very important that be respected. And that's why I've tried to find, from an engineering standpoint, ways to work around ground disturbance for that. The potential for those graves, unfortunately, because of poor historical record, we do not know where exactly each plot is. That could be even under the sidewalk and streets of Spring Garden Road, because the land area where graves were buried between 1755 and 1844, at least, time frame, was an acre lost in circumference around the site. So that's something which, is kind of always something to note.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Hinch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do not sit on the CPAD board, but I was interested in this topic here about the Halifax Library. I also spoke with Mike York with regards to respects of what the library could be. Can you, as you can see, I ran in once I knew that you were speaking. What are the plans if it does, come to fruition that the library does stay? What would you like to see there?
So, with there is a community place, I've been approached on many fronts. Even suggestions about a pickleball court inside, and an archive. The Army Citadel, at the Citadel, there's the Army Museum. They were very interested in a museum there, but also as a functioning community space for even gardening or what have you in there. And I think that there's a plethora of opportunities when you have a building that's 39,000 square feet. Currently, there's a lot that you can do with it. And it's structurally made of steel and different fabrications. So it has openness inside, because it was meant originally for books, so, but it's meant as a public space. So it's very open inside. So it lends itself to even being able to have musical concerts, different things in there. And in my presentation, I had actually some of the pictures. You can see the interior of the space here is very open. So that opens a field of possibilities. But if you don't have good public engagement to really narrow those possibilities down, then, I at this point, it's too early to speculate on exactly what the public would want out of that. I've given my personal thoughts on some potentials, but say there's due process that has to be and should be followed with this.
All right, William, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hinch, and thank you, William, for presenting today and for responding to all the questions. Thank you. We'll now move on to public participation. However, before we do that, I wonder if one of the councillors would be willing to put forward a motion to extend the timing for this meeting. I do understand one councillor has a hard stop at 12:30. But other than that, Councillor Purdy, yes. So looking for a motion to extend the meeting. You're moving it until 12:30. Looking for a seconder. Okay. Yes. I'm just curious why would we not be doing this closer to 12? Well, our legal counsel has suggested we could do it now or do it after. Yes. Okay. If you prefer not to do it. Okay. Well, we can do it after if that's the, yeah. I don't. Okay, we can wait until after public participation. Thank you, Councillor Kent. Okay, moving on to public participation. We have 3 registered speakers, and our first speaker is Karen Mitchell. So I'll ask Karen to come forward, please.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Founded in 1749, Halifax has a vast and rich historical, diverse, and cultural past. A significant component connected to that past is its heritage buildings. While a few remain, many have become derelict through intentional neglect, most often concluding with no other option but to demolish them. Demolishment is an easy option, but by no means the most responsible one, particularly when we are referring to the public buildings belonging to the populace. As the electors and taxpayers of Halifax, it behooves HRM to engage their public as to the options for a derelict building. The Halifax Memorial Library, or as it is more locally and affectionately known, the Old Library, is a prime example of such an historic building, and a considerable number of Haligonians, as demonstrated by a recent and ongoing petition, wish to see the Memorial Library remain in its rightful location in Grafton Park. This granite and limestone memorial structure is an inherited, physical, timeless space with an imposing and defined presence in the heart of the city. It is surrounded by other nearby historic sites, including the Presbyterian Church of St. David, St. Mary's Boys' School, St. Mary's Basilica, St. Matthew's United Church, the current courthouse, the Medchuk School of Architecture, formerly the Natural Science Museum, and the Old Burying Ground, a National Historic Site of Canada. These places, including the Memorial Library, are part of the historical streetscape fabric of Halifax, which continues to inform us about the past. Being able to see and experience historic buildings instills pride in one's history, as well as acting as a place of social exchange between community members, drawing people closer together. As a younger person, I fondly recall walking through the doors of the Old Library, which for 64 years was the mainstay of the Halifax Public Library system, with thousands of events, lectures, and literally millions of visitors and borrowers. The bronze statue of Sir Winston Churchill has been standing out like a silent companion, and it is impossible to walk past him or the library and not remember World Wars I, II, and the Korean War. Replaced by the new ultra-modern multimedia library complex, the Memorial Library, with its external and distinctive Art Deco features and legacy, still has new discoveries with stories that deserve to be experienced for more than once. And what about the thousands of paupers' graves that lay beneath the library grounds. They cannot be forgotten. In the words of Dr. Jonathan Fowler, beware the silence of history. There is a story consisting of bones and graves underneath this building. At no time, for any reason, should they be further disturbed. The old library is worthy of a continued existence. Its inherent value, including historical significance, architectural and aesthetic merit, potential for adaptive reuse, community connection, and long-term cost-effectiveness, outweighs the cost of restoration or preservation. It therefore becomes more beneficial to maintain and renovate rather than demolishing it. We must not lose sight of the fact that once a piece of history is destroyed, it is lost forever. Consideration of adaptive reuse for this iconic structure could transform it into a functional, modern space while preserving its architectural character and heritage. It would save money, embed carbon, and revitalize the Grafton Park area by giving it a profitable, ongoing second life. The phrase, esteeming evanescence, beautifully captures the act of finding meaning, value, and appreciation in older buildings, and can make us wiser and more caring stewards. The Halifax Memorial Library and all those who appreciate its familiar presence deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. And we'll move, not seeing any questions, we'll move to our next speaker, who is a Zoom speaker, Andrea Arbeck. And so I'll ask the clerk if Andrea is ready.
I believe we're just working on getting her joined now.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, please, Andrea.
Good morning. Thank you very much for allowing me to present. I apologize for not being there in person, but I did not want to share my terrible cold with anyone else, so this seemed the safest approach. As I was introduced, my name is Andrea Arbeck, and I am chair of the Heritage Trust of Nova Scotia. In my professional life, I had a 30-year career as a consultant doing feasibility studies and business plans for public attractions, which included a wide range of community consultations and stakeholder consultations. Since the former library closed, the Trust has been very concerned about the possibility that the building would be demolished. As you're aware, the building was designed by renowned Nova Scotia architect Leslie Farron in a modern classical style, and it is important for a number of reasons. The library was the first post-war public building to be constructed in Halifax. As has been already mentioned, the library was built as a memorial to those who served in World War I, World War II, and Korea. And as also been discussed, the building in Grafton Park were constructed directly on top of thousands of graves dating to from the 1760s to 1800s, many of which remain under the site. So the original recommendation for the building, which called for the exploration of plans for partial or complete demolition of the building, was a direction that the Trust strenuously opposed at the time and continues to oppose today. We are seeing a heartbreaking number of privately owned heritage buildings being demolished in HRM, and to have one demolished by our own municipal government would send a very dangerous message about the value HRM places on our built heritage. So it was with some relief that I read in the staff report that staff are now recommending giving further consideration to possible alternative uses for the building. Having said that, I'd like to suggest a slightly different approach to these exploration, which I am basing on my decades of planning and community consultation experience. The staff report recommends public engagement that would probe the importance of retaining the building and solicit opinions on the types of uses that might be appropriate. In terms of probing views on the importance of retaining the building, I would suggest that the thousands of people who have signed the Friends of the Memorial Library's petition, asking the city to explore options for alternative uses, and the hundreds of people who filled O'Regan Hall to discuss the same topic, already provide ample indication of the public's views on the importance of retaining the building. I don't think you need to spend the city's limited resources on gauging a public opinion on saving the building. I think that the public has already made their views amply clear on that. With respect to soliciting opinions on the types of uses that might be appropriate for the building, I would suggest that what will likely come out of that process is going to be a bit of a dog's breakfast of ideas, many of which will not be feasible. Furthermore, after soliciting those views, the burden of responsibility will then be on HRM to sift through a long list of ideas and assess their viability, a process that will take a considerable amount of time and expense, and frankly, expertise. I believe this will represent such a big hurdle that it will be used as a reason not to move ahead with an assessment of alternative use options. Instead, I would suggest that what would be a more expedient approach would be for HRM to issue a call for expressions of interest from parties who wish to present proposals for adaptive reuse of the building. This would take the burden off HRM to have to explore the feasibility of multiple possible uses that might emerge from community consultation process. Issuing call for expressions of interest would place the burden of responsibility on proponents to put forward their proposals for concepts for adaptive reuse of the building, which would be less onerous for HRM. Of course, HRM could ensure that expressions of interest fall within certain parameters by requiring that the submissions adhere to criteria set out by the municipality. For example, HRM could stipulate that proponents should assume they would be responsible for capital and operating costs.
30 seconds remain.
Not requiring capital or operating support from HRM would be viewed more favorably. HRM could require that all necessary measures be taken not to disturb the burials on the site. There could be a requirement that proposals integrate existing commemorative elements of the site, in other words, a continuation of the original war commemorative elements, as well as adding new commemorative elements that acknowledge the other groups whose stories are tied to the site, those of whom are in many cases marginalized and whose stories are generally not well known and told in our city. These are just a couple of examples of criteria that could be placed on expressions of interest to illustrate how HRM could ensure that proposals fall within certain parameters. The municipality could then use these proposals received through the process of the call for expressions of interest as the basis for seeking feedback from the public. So this would still ensure that community consultation is an important component of the process.
Excuse me, could you please just wrap up?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. I can't see the time.
Yes,
so,
we did see.
we
did say time. You may not have heard.
Oh,
yes.
No, sorry, I didn't. And so what I'm just suggesting is a slightly different process that places the concepts before the public and to provide feedback on, which in my experience is a more effective way than starting with a blank slate and asking people what they think. This wouldn't cost the city any more, and I believe will get you closer to finding out if there are any credible concepts for reusing the site. I know at least one very credible private sector concept that would not require any capital or operating costs on the part of the city.
Okay, I believe,
you just need to ask.
I think we're going to have to end. Thank you very much for presenting and also for protecting everyone's health today. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thanks very much. Not seeing any questions of clarification, we'll move on to our next speaker, and that's Bernard Smith from Halifax. And while you're walking up, I'll just mention that you have 5 minutes, and our clerk will show you when you have 30 seconds remaining and when you have time, when it's time.
Well, thank you very much. I don't imagine I'll need that much time, really, because I'm the chair of the old burying ground also, so I've got an interest in this place. You know, I want to see it used by the people, the public, and at the same time recognized for what it's trying to remind us of, you know, and the fact that habitation's been here a long time and we should respect it. I found that I was frankly disgusted by the lack of support for visitors to this city. I had significant health issue, and I sat in the old burying ground on the seats there for quite a lot of afternoons. And the number of people that came in carrying their little plastic bags with bits of stuff they bought around the downtown, they weren't learning anything about this city. They didn't know why it was here and how it was founded, or the various stages it's been through. And I thought it was just a travesty that we weren't doing a better job of telling our story. So I got interested in where could we tell this story. And of course I looked at the old library building, and this is one of the uses that I think we should absolutely look at doing. I mean, we're just not fulfilling our obligations to the public that we represent, and frankly the visitors to this city, to sort of tell our story. And what's wrong with that? We should. So I thought that at the same time I started looking at uses for this building, because I recognized it was larger than perhaps an information desk and some support services. And I found a tremendous interest in being involved with the place. And so I think there's a huge opportunity that we're losing if we demolish that building. So I felt so strongly about it that here I am. And I would add that I did a reconstruction on a building 35 years ago, because 35 years ago they were going to demolish the Carlton House. Now the Carlton House has a checkered career, far more than the library. But I was involved one afternoon in a discussion when the Carlton House was scheduled to be demolished on the following weekend, and it was Friday afternoon. I bought the Carlton House, and it stopped it from being demolished. And in the 3 or 4 weeks that followed, a number of people tried to take over my stake in the Carlton House, and I was frankly relieved, because I wasn't sure I could come up with all the money anyway. And but I stopped it from being demolished. And this is exactly what we should be doing here with this library. We should be saying what we're going to do with it, not that we're going to bash it down. And so I've come up with about 6 or 8 uses, and certainly one of them is tourist information, because the province has pulled back from that. The city has an obligation to tell its story. So I don't think I have too much else to say, but if you have any questions, fire away.
Councillor Kent has a question for you.
Well, I have an interest in chatting here a moment with you and about you. I just want to acknowledge that you are Bernie Smith, and you are a significant contributor to the city of Halifax. As I think, were you the chief financial officer?
I think you're probably
well, I was just going to say, my grandchildren are Ike Kent's my grandchildren's Ike Kent's great grandchildren, and
so we spent 24 years together.
You did, and I'm awfully proud of that, and it's good to see you. But it's significant for council to acknowledge that, I think. So we very much appreciate you being here. I very much appreciate you still being as active and engaged in our city. Clearly you have that passion, and it's great to see you. So thanks for coming in. I also appreciate your approach about making sure, as we did the previous speakers, around what we can do to acknowledge and protect and celebrate the history that we have here in the city. And I can tell you, it's been that library has been an ongoing concern for councils, not just now, but for years. And we are and I feel we are getting closer. But having this opportunity to hear from you again and others, it's important for us. I know that the next motion that is on the table is about more consultation, and I think that's really vital. Hopefully we'll see you as part of that. So I just wanted to say thank you.
I felt quite strongly. If you get the right group of people involved, council can back away from it financially and let the public look after it.
That sounds like a plan. Thank you.
I could fundraise on that. There's no doubt that I could come up with enough money to repair the place.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
We've got a
Well.
vision. Well, thank you, Bernie.
With that, I'll say thank you to Councillor Kent and thank you to, it's Bernie. Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith, for coming in. Really appreciate it. So moving along now to our next speaker, and we're getting dangerously close to noon. We'll ask David Goff to come forward, please. And you have 5 minutes, and you'll get the 30-minute signal, 30-second signal.
It's still morning. Good morning, councilors, and thank you for your time. It is my pleasure today to comment in support of the motion to expand the scope of the community engagement program to include consultation about the value of the Memorial Library building. I'm speaking to you as a lifelong Haligonian and resident of Ward 1, now District 7, a former Memorial Library patron, an active supporter of Halifax's robust military heritage, as a founder and now vice chair of the Halifax Military Heritage Preservation Society, and as a former honorary colonel in the Canadian Army. I'd like to start by recognizing the positive and constructive tone of your May 12th update report. It is very refreshing and much appreciated. Originally, our society and hundreds of library supporters had worked this file in 2018, culminating in a packed public consultation session on May the 23rd, 2019, almost 7 years ago to the day. What a coincidence. The results are listed in a detailed summary report on our website, which I'll circulate through the clerk's office to you folks. That report may be of interest to you regarding its history. In those 7 years, my two children, who were avid Memorial Library users in their youth, have had children, our grandchildren now, who now enjoy the Central Library. Surely it is time to take action. Our society restarted the Save the Library process again last fall with knowledgeable partners and a core action team. Our team, including business associations, companies, historians, and passionate citizens, have worked with the other history-focused team to professionally engage the public and private sectors to prove there is not only a strong desire to retain the building, but also that it has significant value based on its location and adaptive reuse potential. Some positive results from our team that might be of interest to you include a redevelopment proposal from a local developer. We've already had one. Building usage interest from a local university for library space. The courthouse across the street for meeting space. The Genealogy Association of Nova Scotia for a significant mapping center to be built in the library. The multiple and all positive allnovascotia.com stories. Do a search on All Nova Scotia for the Memorial Library. That's interesting. And all the positive and some very moving 34 comments from the library's change.org petition that's already been referenced. Yesterday's outstanding supportive letter from Paul McKinnon from the Downtown Halifax Business Commission summarizes our group's feelings and research results on the positive potential for the site very, very well, and it supports passing your motion. As Paul says so well, the library occupies the apex of our downtown and uptown districts that is practically begging to be renovated and reopened to benefit all citizens, visitors, and our many, many tourists that Bernie mentioned. Unfortunately, this site has become almost a dirty blight in the middle of our beautiful city, used for protest and having examples of poor landscaping. Halifax HRM can do better, and we should do better. Peninsular beauty should not be limited to the public gardens. Imagine the potential to have a vibrant, clean, and active community hub site with so many possible uses halfway between City Hall, the waterfront, and the public gardens, and close to historic Citadel Hill and the Cambridge Military Library with its priceless connections. The buzz and the civic pride could be captivating and enjoyable, and maybe bring back some of those chip trucks for those noontime memories. In conclusion, thousands of Haligonians have said they want to be engaged to discuss the building future. Several of your HRM associates saw the passion from about 300 attendees at this past January's presentation at the Central Library. They are looking to HRM to act positively to improve the situation. In conclusion, we ask that your standing committee support the motion on the table today and take the next steps. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goff. Oh, Deputy Mayor Cuttle has a question for you. Please remain.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I should have asked the other speakers as well. The Andrea Arabic had a very interesting proposal in terms of how we approach finding a new use, and I'm just wondering if others are in agreement with this approach, or are there any thoughts on this approach?
Andrea has been part of our, Heritage Trust, and Andrea and her staff have been part of the combined approach that our core team, which is kind of divided in Bernard and I on what to do, and William and his group on the history. And the bottom line is something has to be done. And Andrea's approach has been based on good experience of her own career, if you will, and it's something we should look at. Because our worry, as I said, my wife's sitting behind me, we're almost ready to get a third grandchild in a month's time. I'm tired of getting grandchildren and nothing happening to the library. I mean, we can't let this go on and on and on. So Andrea's approach should be looked at, and maybe what you could do is think about include some of Maggie's staff and some of the presenters to work with Andrea and have a focus group. And come up with the best solution for public engagement and options. I know the commercial proposal that we've received is anxious, but that can't be sole source, but could be discussed as well. And I'm actually meeting with the Canadian Army tomorrow to talk about what they want to do, because the Canadian Army is leaving Halifax. Its management is leaving Halifax in September. Not too many people know that. We're losing a general, and that means they want their history, called 5 Division history, maintained. Maybe they should be part of it as well. The Citadel, one final thing, the Citadel Army Museum is full. And don't forget, Halifax is Canada's military city. And as the mayor said on the radio this morning and said in his presentation yesterday, the funds that are coming into this city allow significant resources from commercial companies to pay for things. So there's lots of options that maybe city staff don't know about. I'll be attending a presentation at 2:00 this afternoon on how to use some of those funds from those companies to benefit local contractors and local things. Maybe that $1 billion that's coming to Halifax for XY and ships or whatever, maybe some of those people should put a little into it. I don't think this is going to cost to renovate this library. I don't think it's going to cost the city much. It has to be planned well, and between staff and the educated volunteers around this table, and like Andrea and her people, we can get it done.
Yeah. So thank you for raising the point about the number of people who came up for the presentation on the library. I mean, I think it's important to to remember that over my time in Halifax, it's always been a call to save the library. I haven't seen anybody calling to tear down the library. So I think there is broad support, and I think we know that. And my mind also was going to defense. So that might be an interesting potential opportunity as well. Thank you.
2018, 2019, and he did the one in January. His presentation's been refined and it's 100% accurate, but also the comments from the public are 100% supportive. And between he and I and Bernard, we keep getting calls to do things. So, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I am going to ask for a motion to extend, but I'm going to finish this portion of this topic first. So I will I will make a call to see if there are any people in the gallery that would like to speak. So this is my first call. Are there any people in the gallery that would like to speak? Second call. Third call. Is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak? Go ahead, sir. Please come up and, yes, please come up and state the name and the community you represent.
Simon's giving me a bad look. Do I turn this on? It's on. My name is Frank Laba, and I live in Clayton Park. I'm here today because Daphne wanted me to come, so here I am. And plus I know Will and some of the other speakers. I guess I'm just I was an educator for many years, and I guess I believe in the philosophy, it's not what people say, it's what they do. And I know everybody here is proud of Halifax and the people that were here before us. I think to tear that building down speaks pretty loudly too. So I think that maybe preserving some things quite important, because it sends a message to the children that are going to grow up and see some of this. To take everything down, they'll never see it. They'll just hear people talking about it, and then that's the end of it. Or maybe someone took a picture. I don't know. But I think that what we do speaks volumes, and I think everybody here today is a big fan of Halifax. I am. And I think that we should speak proudly of the city, and we do see tourists coming here. Don't wait for a tourist center. Tell them yourself about the city. I do. I walk along, they say, gee, are you a tourist guide? I say, no, but I guess today I am. So just speak about it, spread the word, and if you do that, the city wins. That's it.
Thank you very much, Frank, and thanks for coming in today and doing what you do. I see that Councillor Purdy put her hand up when I asked for a motion to extend the meeting. Councillor Purdy, did you have an end time of 12:30? Was that what your motion is? Do I have a seconder for that? Okay, thank you, Councillor Saint-Amand. All those in favor of a motion to extend until 12:30, contrary minded, nay. The motion has passed. The meeting has been extended until 12:30, and we'll now move forward to for the staff report, and we'll ask Carol Koziak-Roberts to come forward to provide the staff report.
So good morning, Chair, members of the committee, and councillors. My name is Carol Koziak-Roberts, and I'm a landscape architect with the Policy and Planning Group within Parks and Recreation. So this presentation provides an update on the future of the Halifax Memorial Library and Grafton Park project, and specifically the recommendation to expand the scope of the public engagement. This presentation will walk through the history and constraints of the site, the condition of the building, the original park planning scope, the emerging public interest in reuse, and why staff believe expanded engagement is necessary before moving forward. So in 2024, Regional Council directed staff to prepare a plan for the Memorial Library site that assumed the building would be demolished and the site would be reinstated as a full public park. This assumption was based on three key factors. The first, a decade of unsuccessful attempts to find a viable reuse for the building. Second, the building's poor condition and deteriorating condition. And third, the significant limitations on redevelopment due to the site's history as a burial ground. So to understand the options for the future, we need to understand the site itself. So the land served as the burial ground for the Halifax Poor Asylum and Poorhouse from the mid-1700s to the mid-1800s. Thousands of impoverished and marginalized people were buried in unmarked graves, many unnamed. The site also contains the graves of soldiers and victims of epidemics. The 2020 Archaeological Resource Impact Assessment confirmed a high likelihood of encountering human remains during any subsurface disturbance. The property is a recorded archaeological site and cemetery and is afforded protection under the Provincial Special Places Act and Cemeteries Act. Any construction or demolition would require archaeological monitoring and a protocols planned developed in consultation with the cultural groups whose ancestors may have been buried on the site. When the cemetery was closed, the province granted the land to the city with the condition that it be used exclusively as a public square or garden and for no other purpose. In 1949, the province amended the grant to allow for the construction of a public library. Today, those are the only two permitted uses, a park or library, unless the province amends the grant again. In 2020, the site was designated as a municipal heritage property. It was evaluated as a heritage site rather than a heritage building to place more emphasis on the entire property and its historic associations over a broader period. The library is included as a character-defining element, and this means that any substantial alteration or demolition must comply with the Heritage Property Act, including actions such as substantial alteration or deregistration and demolition. So taken together, these three elements, the burial ground, the Crown grant, and the heritage designation, create a constrained environment for any reuse of the site. So let's turn to the building itself. The Memorial Library opened in 1951 and served the community for 62 years. An addition was built in 1974. When the new Central Library opened in 2013, the Memorial Library was declared surplus and closed in 2014, and it has been vacant and unheated since. A recent facility assessment in 2025 classified the building condition as poor, with a facility condition index of 43.7%. This means that most of the building components are poor or failed condition, and the immediate deficiencies alone, just to replace like for like, are estimated at $7.8 million. Substantially higher costs would be expected for any future possible reuse of the building. And in 2020, this was estimated upwards of $15 to $20 million. So the full cost would be adequately assessed, could not be adequately assessed without a fulsome engineering study that would have to incorporate current building code requirements, accessibility requirements, current Halifax water standards, energy efficiency standards, structural limitations, remediation of the abatement of asbestos and mold, the archaeological considerations, and potential reuse, changes to the floor plate as well, demolition and project soft costs. So all those would be factored into, where you would come with a price tag for reuse. In short, the building is in poor condition, and any reuse would require substantial investment. And considering how much the building's components need replacement and the size of the floor plate, the adaptive reuse work would be at a premium cost for any new use scenario. So given the direction to reinstate a full park, the original park planning process would include identifying park and green space needs for the Halifax downtown area. A consultant would lead the community engagement and park design and interpretation work, and advise on the archaeology and heritage requirements for the building. So public engagement was expected to focus solely on the park plan, but not on the building itself. So since Council's direction, there has been growing public interest in preserving and reusing the building. Community members and heritage groups are increasingly advocating for reconsideration. This level of interest signals that the public expects to have a voice in the future of the building. The park planning would be the first opportunity for the public to provide input about the future of the site, and staff are of the opinion that an engagement that excludes the building could lead to participants' frustration and undermine the process. In other words, a park-only engagement process is unlikely to be successful if there's no opportunity to give input on the building. So staff recommend expanding the public engagement to include the building and gathering feedback on its value and potential retention and possible reuse while continuing the park planning in parallel. This does not mean to conduct a full reuse study. Instead, the goal is to gather the broad public sentiment on the building and what types of uses might be appropriate if it were retained. At the same time, the park planning would continue and a range of park scenarios would be developed, each reflecting different levels of activity, heritage interpretation, and different assumptions about the building's future. Engagement would include online platform and surveys. There would be public open houses and workshops, stakeholder meetings, and clear information about the building's condition, costs, and the site constraints. So with the approval of the direction within this report, it is expected that a consultant would be selected this summer and consultation would commence in the fall. Once engagement and preliminary planning are complete, staff would return to Regional Council with a summary of the public sentiment, a preferred park planning option, and recommendations for the next steps, including processes for heritage and archaeology compliance. If public support for retaining the building is strong, staff may recommend further investigations into reuse options. If support is limited, staff may recommend proceeding with demolition and a full park redevelopment. So given the site's complexity and growing public interest, expanding the engagement assures Council can make a well-informed decision about the site's future. Staff recommend expanding the engagement to include the building while continuing the park planning. The staff report also identifies two alternatives. Council could choose to proceed with the park planning without engagement of the building, or stop the park planning entirely and direct staff to investigate new reuse opportunities for the building. So thank you for receiving this presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Carol. And in the interest of time, maybe we'll avoid the questions of clarity and move right to putting on motion on the floor. So Councillor Kent, you're up first. Would you mind putting the motion on the floor?
Not at all, Madam Chair. Thank you. I move that Community and Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend that Halifax Regional Council direct the Chief Administrative Officer to expand the scope of the community engagement program of the park planning project for the Memorial Library Grafton Park site to include consultation about the value of the Memorial Library building and return with a staff report to Regional Council as set out in the discussion section of the staff report dated May 12th, 2026. So moved.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor Kent. I missed the seconder. Thank you, Councillor Cuddle. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to speak to it for a moment. I'm really pleased to see that this is about re-engaging with the public. I think that's an absolute necessary step. I know, I think it was Councillor Mason that put the motion on the original on the floor, and that was part of the intent. So glad to hear we're moving forward. I also appreciate the parallel options to consider something around the park. But I also now hearing today, we heard two, I think, esteemed residents of our community, lots of them actually, but in particular two who have almost thrown a lifeline out that suggests that maybe there is a way to retain some of the building, invest in the building without it being as a specific and very deliberate cost to the municipality. And so partnership to me sounds like it could be an option. So I'm wondering from staff, how could that work? Before, I just want to offer as well that I think that if this is my thoughts, and you can comment on it when I relinquish the mic, we run out of time very quick. That maybe the Mr. Smith, and I can't remember your name, Miss Goff, Mr. Goff, would consider going back to their respective agencies and look at a collaboration of a proposal that might come in during some of that consultation. I think that as a council, we can't really do something in relation to some of the suggestions you made, which is, you know, coming to the table with money, coming to the table with expertise, clearly expertise, to help create a vision for what we could do without some kind of a proposal. A proposal with some backup plans of how, some clear plans of how you do it, and funding sources and things like that. It's unfortunate that hadn't come in before, but at the same time, you know, things are happening at a particular time and we just have to meet them head on. And I feel more encouraged about opportunities based on the presentations we had from the public today than I have since coming back to council in 2020. Council had made the decision around considering the deconstruction of the building with the right kind of investments. You know, the report clearly says it's a significant investment that maybe that's not recommended for the public realm at this time, but maybe with the right presentation and the right considerations that the residents here who have presented have, and the connections to potential funding, then maybe there's something that we can do. So I just want to know from staff, have we missed the boat on that? Or is there a potential that if they did come with something that was more appealing and doable, right, in the future, could we still insert that into the future of the Halifax Public Library in the Coughton Park?
So I think as it's going right now, there is that opportunity. I mean, we have always been open. We've had proposals being brought forward to us, you know, since 2013 to put forward. So if there are proposals that are coming forward to take a look, definitely that would be part of having this engagement process. So I think, but we would still continue, as the recommendation is that we would also be looking at, you know, what are the opportunities for having that park, that alternative, if there is, you know, ends up that there is no viable use for the library, you know, for this next kind of the next look at this issue. So
yeah,
so we would have both of those in place.
Good, thank you. Just want to make sure that folks that came are aware of it, and us as a council would consider that. And just so folks know, this would be a recommendation to council, and then so council would have consideration if it passes here, and maybe some more information should be shared directly with all council members beyond just this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kent. We'll go to Deputy Mayor Cuttle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So excellent presentations today. I know this debate has been going on for years. I remember as a planning student in the 90s, we were talking about the future of this, of the library. I'm very interested in looking at what a call for proposals would look like in terms of a program. I do think that before we go to the public and ask for opinions on what what do they want to see on the site, that providing some options and some ideas to to evaluate public support against would be of great value. This is not uncommon. There's like projects in cities all around the world where they do call for proposals. I think about one of the most famous ones is the High Line in New York City, where they had the abandoned railroad track, and that was an international call for proposals, and they actually ended up saving the High Line and turning it into one of the most celebrated public spaces anywhere. So it's not an unusual approach to do a call for proposals. And we know there is broad support. Like, we've been talking about this for a long time. We know there's broad support for keeping the library. I'm wondering, and I'm going to perhaps see if we could, I'm trying to draft a motion on the fly here for supplemental report, looking at what a call for proposal program might look like before proceeding with the public engagement. Because I think once we approve this and we proceed with the public engagement, then we're doing too many things at once, and perhaps there's a cleaner, more specific way to deal with this, but particularly if we design some criteria around what would be a feasible proposal. I mean, to go out to the public and get a whole bunch of ideas that aren't feasible or doable or that we can afford isn't a good use of the public's time, and I don't think it's a good use of our staff time. I would be anyway. I'm going to. I think there's a couple other speakers here.
Yeah, Councillor Cuttle, our executive director would like to make a suggestion, just to your point.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair, and Richard or Carol may be able to speak to this more deeply, but I would suggest that's alternative 2 in the staff report. Really is sort of the means that we would recommend if committee wished to go ahead with, without the sort of broader public engagement piece first and wanted to proceed with an investigation.
Right. Okay. I'm just gonna look for that. Sorry, I've got so many windows open on. So we haven't.
Maybe we could show it on the
here.
screen if we could.
Open link in new tab. I've got all the correspondence tabs open here. I'm drowning in tabs. I have to get back to the report. Okay, hold on. Okay, alternative 2, that regional council. Okay, so that is to investigate new potential opportunities for the reuse of the library. It's not really specific to this notion of a call for proposals. So would that in that investigation, is that how would, if we approved recommendation 2, how would that fit with this idea of doing a call for proposals?
So if we did go with that alternative, what it would be is that we would begin to kind of redirect, and we would look at soliciting, doing a call for proposals for that part of that, and so we wouldn't be doing what was originally the direction given back in 2024. So it would be, we would have to take a look at that further, but it would be like identifying that there is still, what council would like to do is still continue to look at opportunities. We would put together sort of what that criteria of what are called proposals could be looking at. And then from there, see how the public engagement would work around that as well.
All right, my time is up, so I'll have to come back, but I would be looking to defeat the main motion and put the option number 2 or alternative number 2 on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cuttle and our Executive Director. Moving on to Laura White. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for staff. As an incoming councillor with 10 years behind this, it was really great for me to have this additional staff look at the condition. I would like to know more about, because we have talked about these kind of 2 options, one going the staff recommended motion, and then this second option of a call for proposals. What is the benefit in doing this kind of step-by-step in going to the broader public on with your motion first? Like what would we be missing if we skip to this alternative? Yeah, there's lots there, but even the fact that we can't do anything with this site without provincial permission other than a library right now. Anyhow, can you give a little more context why this step was recommended first rather than maybe doing the call as well?
So the chair to the councillor. So what this step does in doing public engagement is really asking the question of other views that may be there about the importance of actually having more park space in the downtown. So other engagement that we've had when we do park planning is that we do hear a lot of people saying, you know, we want more green space. You know, there's a lot of need with, you know, new development, increasing density. So having that question of being asked, are there, you know, what is the broad public sentiment? Are there other thoughts or opinions that what has been represented now? So that would be, you know, going to that first step is that we would do that engagement to see where, you know, other opinions and where people are landing on and what we hear about that. So going with the opportunities of doing a call for proposal, we're still focused on the building and looking at options. What that could provide is maybe having some really good alternatives for people to consider, versus if you going asking, well, what are those things that we would want to include in a call for proposal? There might be some uses that people say, no way, we don't want to have considering, you know, that here. So we would be able to inform, doing the public engagement first, we would be able to inform what that call for proposals would be and those types of uses. So I think those are the two differences.
Okay. The step-by-step seems to make sense to me. Could you further define its kind of strong public support or limited public support? How do we quantify that? What does that mean?
Yeah, that really is a key. And I think what you look at is saying, are there kind of, when you look at different demographics, different communities, voices, are we still hearing similar things in all different areas? Versus it's not sort of like a lot of times you'll have a lot of organized group that promote you know, particular pieces to that, but are we asking, you know, a lot of different groups and getting kind of a full picture of what the public wants? So it's just basically understanding, you know, what are the opposing opinions and what are the opinions that we keep hearing over and again from different groups as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, there's certainly a need for more green space down here. That doesn't mean that it has to be right here. With my last minute, I'd like to ask, so I think I'm most comfortable with the staff recommendation because it sort of gives the most options and also leaves it open for the library. My question is, will there be any kind of talk with what goes out about the old versus new part of the library? Like, to me, a great compromise would be to take off the new part and have some extra park space and then be able to preserve the old part of the library. Will that kind of come out in what you plan to go forward with?
Yeah, those are definitely questions about, you know, are you looking at the entirety of a building or looking at partial of the building, just the original? So I think we would hash out many different alternatives and look at this from all different angles.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Morse.
Thank you. Interesting discussion. I think there are some advantages of a call for proposals in that we could put something more specific out to the public to consider. We could establish sort of a financial framework for what the city could do. We could also build in all of the constraints respecting the burial site as part of the project proposal going out. So I think there are some advantages of doing it that way. You know, when we're sitting here thinking about this morning and hearing some of the discussion that we've had and the presentations, I suddenly remembered this beautiful memorial that I visited in London, England. It's an old church that was damaged during the Second World War by a bomb. and the roof was blown off, but much of the foundation remained. And so the roof was left off, and the inside of the church was stabilized, and heritage explanations of it were built on the inside walls. And now it's a place that people visit that is both a park and a church without a roof, but it's a room that explains the whole heritage and what happened there. Maybe there's a solution there when we put it out to architects and designers and people who specialize in this sort of thing. Maybe we would have the library walls remain and the roof is gone and it's an open air part of the park. I don't know. But I think putting it out to people who are trained in that sort of solution, because this is very complicated with all of the constraints. So anyway, I'm glad that we're thinking about engagement, and I'm glad we're talking about a request for proposals. I think either one is better than how stuck we've been on this particular project. So my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morris and Vice Chair Saint-Amand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm inclined to agree. I think the idea of going out to, I love the idea of engaging the public on many of the decisions that we face. This is a unique circumstance where we have some constraints on what we can reasonably expect to achieve at the site. And so narrowing the scope of what we ask of the public, I think may be the most appropriate order of operations here. If we were talking about greenfield development, we have this giant space and we have sky's the limit. What do we want to do? That's a totally different story. But in this particular case, we've got the sensitivity of the site. We've got a heritage property. There's a whole bunch of facets that wind up influencing what we can and cannot do in a practical sense, what we can reasonably afford, whether we need partnership in order to undertake whatever it is that we have in mind. And so I think what the deputy mayor is seeking here makes a lot of sense, because I think the more well-defined we can paint the options for the public to provide some constructive feedback, the better result we're going to wind up getting out of it as a result of that engagement taking place after we've narrowed the scope of options that are available to them. Because otherwise we'd be expecting them to have a level of expertise that they don't have, we don't have. We're asking the experts to provide some advice up front and then present those options to the public for feedback. It doesn't necessarily narrow the scope of options that will be presented, because if we're talking about going out for suggestions coming from public-private partnerships or whatever the case may be with our request for proposals, that can still be effected in really creative ways, as Councillor Morse noted has happened before in other locations. So I would hope that we would wind up getting back some really concrete examples of and really specific pitches that would be varied in nature and give the public considerable meat to chew on. And I think for that reason, I'm inclined to go in the direction that the deputy mayor is recommending. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saint-Amand. And I just want to provide a little update. We are going to lose quorum in the next couple of moments. So I give you this advice, Deputy Mayor, before you begin to speak. What we need to do is defeat the main motion, and then if you wish to put another motion on the floor, if that's the way, or we may wish to approve the main motion, but we must do that in the next couple of minutes or defer the vote on this item until a future meeting. So just wanted to give those words of caution. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to state my intent that, if this motion is defeated, I will come back and put the alternative number 2 on the floor. I think when it comes to this building, we need to make a stance that this is a historic building. It has meaning to the city, meaning to the residents. It's part of our history, our identity, particularly now as we're looking at becoming, defense city. This has its relationship to World War I, World War II, the Korean War, This is significant, and at some point, we need to say, yes, we need to save this. I feel this discussion has been going on for much too long, and I don't really know what we will achieve through the public participation. If it's about green space, demolishing that building to make green space isn't going to solve our green space issues in the downtown. I think that's a broader picture. We've been waiting for a green space plan for the peninsula for a long time. This isn't about that. This is about saving a building, a historic building, and so I just going to say I'll hope we can defeat the main motion and support the alternative number 2. Thank you.
Thank you. The question has been called for. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary minded, nay. The motion has failed. Okay. Councillor Cuttle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I move that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend that Halifax Regional Council, 1, discontinue the work on a plan for the Memorial Library site that was directed in items 2 and 3 of the July 9th, 2024 motion, item number 15.1.5, and 2, direct the Chief Administrative Officer to investigate new potential opportunities for the reuse of the Memorial Library and return to Council with a report outlining those potential uses for its consideration. Thank you, Councillor Saint-Amand. So I would only, say it's not in the motion, but I think there's been enough dialogue here around the council that I hope the coming back with a program for a call for proposals is something that we're going to see as a result of this. Thank you.
Do I see it? Okay. Thank you, Councillor Kent. The question has been called for. All those in favor, raise their hand or can indicate by aye. Contrary minded, nay. The alternative 2 motion has passed. Okay. Thank you. Moving along. It appears that item 13.1.2, Affordable Housing Strategy Project Update, will be deferred. I need a motion to defer it. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cuttle, seconded by Councillor Saint-Amand. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hands. Contrary minded, nay. You need to put your hand up. Thank you. Okay, and okay, we have in-camera meeting minutes. Could I test council? Okay, thank you, Councillor Kent. You're going to move the.
Thank you. I'll move that the in-camera, in-private minutes of April 16th, 2026 be approved as circulated.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Purdy. All those in favor, raise your hand or signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. We don't have any added items today. Are there any notices of motion from councillors? Not seeing any. The date of the next meeting is June 18, 2026. Okay, and thank you. And the meeting adjourned at 12:41. Thank you all.